Hi everyone, this is Paul here from the Magdalen Centre. Today I'm doing the weekly Science and Seasons report, outlining the main themes or aspects taking place in the skies and then explaining what the themes that they highlight are to us. So, as usual, before I start the aspects, I just want to clarify that astrology doesn't control us. It's not something from the sky that controls everything that happens around us. It's just a set of influences that highlights what is going on within the collective unconscious, and if we understand what's happening we can better navigate it, but we have to choose to engage with the process. It's not something that happens automatically. Now with the aspects this week, if we start off with the moon as usual, we're starting off with the moon in Capricorn, so this is a time where we may feel like the need to build on things, to engage with the long-term planning, to figure out what we want to achieve as a long-term project as opposed to a short-term project. On Thursday, the moon then moves into Aquarius, and this is a time where we may feel that sense of being individual, or the being unique and different to other people. It's also a time of potentially feeling that need for a sense of community, of meeting up with like-minded people and spending time together and appreciating each other for who we are as individuals, but also understanding what links us all together and gives us that sense of community. Then on Saturday, the moon moves into Pisces, and this is where we get it helps to delve into the collective unconscious and feel that sense of oneness that underlies everything and underlies all apparent separation, and allows us to feel that sense of connection with everything around us, before finally on Tuesday moving into Aries to begin a new cycle of growth where we're looking at taking actions based on our desires and goals, and feeling that sense of initiative and desire to do something. Now the other aspects of this week, on Wednesday itself, Saturn's moving into Capricorn. I've done a whole video on this, there's plenty of detail there, but the basic gist of this is it's a move away from looking at or examining our beliefs and being shown where our own belief systems create blocks and obstacles for us. So these especially beliefs in terms of our self-belief, what we believe we're capable of doing and who we believe we are, but also it's also looking at belief systems in terms of political and religious and highlighting where they're too narrow, or showing us where these beliefs, when crystallised, actually limit our potential and stop us from becoming the best version of ourselves because we're too busy clinging to beliefs which may not actually be beneficial for us. But with the movement to Capricorn, this is now looking at our actions and our long-term goals, and looking at the structures that we build in our lives, especially the notion of legacy. And it's, are we building a legacy which is true to who we are and that will stand the test of time? Or are we building something on quicksand, where we're building something based on another person's vision that it may sound good but it's not true to who we are and doesn't really allow us to live our lives with integrity where we're being true to who we are? And it's also remember to develop the discipline, self-control and patience necessary to manifest a long-term goal, because anything worthwhile is going for is never really easy. There's no shortcuts to it. We can only achieve this long-term goal through consistent, dedicated action and commitment towards that goal, and it's something that we work towards day by day. So it may not be massive actions that we take on every day, but if we have the discipline and focus necessary to remember why we're doing something and to commit to that action every day, no matter how dull it may occasionally get, because for any goal that's worthwhile there will always be dry spells where we may be struggling for that motivation and we may well be wondering why we're bothering. But if we can remember that goal and remember what we're striving for, and also look back at where we've come from and how much we've achieved through dedicated action, having that discipline to keep pushing through and overcome the obstacles that we face will allow us to keep going towards that goal. So this is a time where things like our self-control, our self-discipline and our patience and perseverance towards any given goal will be tested to see if we're actually committed to it and actually believe we can do it. Because it's one thing to say we believe we can do something, and it's one thing to get things started, but anything that requires a lot of hard work and has no shortcuts will also test us, test our mettle and test the strength of our character. So this is a period where we may have to try and simplify things by paring away from our lives to things which we don't actually need or aren't true to who we are, and focus on the projects which are really important to us and are actually true to who we are, and commit to them. Now the following day we have the winter solstice, so the Sun moves into Capricorn and joins Saturn on the 1st degree of Capricorn. So this while Sun and Saturn meet each other every year, for it to be at the 1st degree of Capricorn itself is unusual. It doesn't happen very often. I mean, Saturn itself only comes to this degree once every 29.5 years, so already it's not common for this to happen on the solstice itself. But when the Sun and Saturn are conjunct, this is about having the knuckling down and learning to incorporate and put discipline, patience and self-control and make them part of our own personal characters, so we don't just, they're not just there that we use occasionally and then we just throw them away. If we can incorporate these qualities into our character, into our being, then this puts us in a much stronger position to continue and commit with our goals, because we're not being airy-fairy with the discipline. It's a part of who we are, and we have that necessary self-discipline, self-control to keep taking actions, no matter how dull they may get occasionally. Just remembering that occasionally, for any given climb up a mountain, there's normally a plateau at some point, and it's okay to be there as long as we don't stay there. But if we stop taking action, then we're just going to be stuck at that plateau, or may even start moving backwards. So it's a time, if we can incorporate discipline, self-control and structure into our lives and commit to them beyond this aspect, then they will help us to continue along our journey, continue taking these, committing to spiritual discipline, physical discipline, whatever your goals are. But if we can incorporate self-discipline into our character, then we can commit to goals and keep them going rather than letting them fizzle out because we can't be bothered anymore. Now on Saturday in the early hours, so for some people will be Friday, Mercury will be turning direct again. So it's been retrograde since the 3rd of December and now it's turning direct. So this is a time where whatever realizations we've had about our own beliefs, about our understanding of the big picture and figuring out what's really happening outside of ourselves and around us, and understanding how our own beliefs are moulding things, this is a time where it's start taking the actions again, because the review period is over. Whatever information that we need, we would ideally have received it and learn to take it on board rather than resisting it. And if we've done that, we'll have a more comprehensive view of the big picture, of understanding how our beliefs are influencing our choices and the world around us, and making necessary changes based on this information, so that we're taking a wiser course of action and we've had the courage to challenge any beliefs we may have and let go of them if they're limiting us and preventing us from embracing our full potential. So this is from Saturday onwards. Mercury will be direct again, and we may experience a bit of chaos in the lead up to that. We might not, depends on how in tune we are with what's going on with the energies around us. But if we're trying to take things slow for the time being, just to make the most of this transit or this retrograde and learn from it, once Mercury turns direct, things will really start speeding up around us, and it'll be time to take the actions necessary based on the new information, so that we're more aligned with truth rather than what we think is the right way but may not actually be the best way to do something. And on Monday itself, Venus will be turning or changing signs, being in Sagittarius, but it moves into Capricorn now. And this is a time where our values may shift away from things like freedom, spontaneity, and more towards things like commitment, of stability, and a sense of security in relationships. But it's looking at creating order or valuing order in our lives, because Capricorn, it does deal with things like reputation, deals with our long-term goals, but it also deals with higher order. So there are natural laws which we learn about them in Sagittarius through spending time in nature and widening our perception to see this order. But Capricorn is about aligning our actions with it, because it's one thing to understand something and have the knowledge of it, it's quite another to apply it in our lives. And with Venus moving into Capricorn, it's looking at or valuing commitment, it's valuing patience and discipline over normal spontaneity, and it's valuing something that's long lasting rather than something that's flash in the pan. So it's maybe time, if we are in a relationship, or look at the relationships we have, this can include friendships as well, but it's building a sense of commitment into our relationships rather than just spontaneity and fun. It's important to have fun in our relationships, don't get me wrong, it should never be dull and inspiring and crush your spirit, but at the same time we also need to show commitment through our actions for a relationship to keep going, because whenever there's a difficult time or any obstacles, we need to remember why we're doing something and remember to commit to it. Commitment is something that we do every single day. It's not a one-time deal. If we're truly committed to something, we work on it every single day. So this obviously Venus bring this to our value system as well, may well help us with the discipline necessary to work on projects. But in relationships, it's about taking those steps to demonstrate commitment in our relationships, whether these be romantic, platonic, business, anything like that. Commitment is necessary for anything to live or survive the test of time. So this is what Venus in Capricorn is showing us. So altogether, the main themes for this week are going to be more focused on commitment, of focusing on the long-term goals, and understanding that we need to be taking actions, committed action every single day for any given project, relationship, whatever it is that we're working on, for it to last the test of time. We can't just work on it every now and again and then just let it go, because it'll just wither away if we do that. So with the time in Capricorn, it's understanding higher laws of things. It may be time of karma, it may not. It depends on how we live our lives, whether we strive to live our lives aligned with truth, or are we always telling white lies or trying to blur the details or blur the truth a bit in order to get our own way. So during this time, this is the beginning of a 3-year transit with Saturn moving into Capricorn, and it's important that we learn to be honest with ourselves, make sure that our actions are aligned with our truth, as a time for building on our integrity. So if for whatever reason our integrity isn't great, this is a transit that will really show that to us, but also give us the opportunity to improve it, to take that dedicated action, to demonstrate that when we say we're going to do something, we actually do it. We are committed to a goal, and we're not just some flake who will, at the first sign of difficulty, just give up at that point. So, and it's also important that we demonstrate this to ourselves, not just to other people, because if we want to do something for ourselves and we commit to it, that gives us a lasting sense of accomplishment, because we've done it the hard way, we've put in that effort, and we've reaped the rewards in the long term. This isn't necessarily time for instant rewards or anything like that, but let's face it, anything that is worth our time takes time and effort in order to achieve it. It's not something that just happens immediately. If everything happened immediately, then we wouldn't necessarily feel a sense of satisfaction of seeing the fruits of our own labours. So this is a time of really working on building or demonstrating or working on things like self-discipline, patience, self-control, and learning to, it can be a bit of self-denial, but this isn't for self-denial as punishment. We're talking about delayed gratification here. Because if we're constantly pursuing immediate gratification, then we won't work on our long-term goals and we won't build a legacy for ourselves, because we're so busy trying to indulge ourselves, indulge our appetites, that we don't create anything that's worthwhile for us and that we can feel proud of. So this is a time where we may need to learn to delay gratification till later on, because something that gratification that comes immediately only has a short-term pleasure to it anyway. Something that we've achieved in the long term, and that when we look back at where we came from and think, wow, we've come a long way, done a lot of hard work, and we've become a much stronger and reliable individual as a result. If we can incorporate these characteristics into our being, which the Sun-Saturn conjunction is an opportunity to do that, then we can develop the character necessary to push through adversity, to persevere and be resilient in the face of challenges, and have the courage to not give up, to commit to the actions that we say we're going to do, and to learn to appreciate when things are going slowly, and to see them as an opportunity to work on ourselves, to strengthen our self-discipline rather than it being a time to give up, and to see the plateaus as a period where there may be brief respite from the climb, but it's also an opportunity to see how far we've come and evaluate what the next steps are to climb the next stage of that journey up the mountain of our own personal goals. So I hope it's a useful gauge for you. As I said, we all have to make the choice to engage with this. It's not something that's forced upon us. These are just the aspects, the overall themes taking place. But if we engage with the process and take that inward journey to look into ourselves and see where we need to work on these areas, then we can become much stronger people in the long term. And if we're strong within ourselves, we're in a much better position to help other people. So it may well be a time that we need to learn, if we haven't already learned how to do it, we may need to learn to set boundaries during this period of saying, I can't work, I have these tasks to do already, I've already promised these things, I can't take on anymore. It's time to learn to say no if we have to, rather than just giving into what other people say. We all have to take responsibility for our own learning, for our own lives, and for any given relationship or partnership, we're only responsible for our half of it. So if we take responsibility for our own needs, for making sure that we learn to fulfill our own personal needs rather than relying on another person, and ideally the person will do the same, that way when the two people come together, both self-sufficient, but it's a partnership based on wanting to work together, of having a shared goal or shared vision and wanting to work together, rather than it being a case of codependency and neediness. If we can create that self-sufficiency within us and that sense of personal security, then we won't be relying on the external world and other people to create this. We've made it ourselves and no one can take that away from us. So this is a time for setting boundaries as and where appropriate, and being able to say no to things which are not in our highest interest and may not actually be in the highest interest of the other person either, no matter how much they may think it is. So that's a useful gauge for everyone, but we have to, as I said, we need to learn or go through this process ourselves and make the choice to embrace it, because it's not something that's forced on us. We have to choose to engage with it, and if we do, we may well achieve an enormous amount of growth, but only if we remember to take committed action rather than just being airy-fairy about it. So, may learn a lot from the astrology going on, and may we all emerge from all of these various challenges that we must all face within ourselves, and may we all become very strong through it. So, take care, many blessings.